Next is about principles of nomenclature. The five central principles regulating the names of animals are principles of nomenclature, like principle of coordination. The principle of coordination is that within the family group, genus group, and species group, a name established for a taxon at any rank in the group is simultaneously established with the same author and date for date taxa based on the same name bearing type at other ranks in the corresponding group. In other words, publishing a new zoological name automatically and simultaneously establishes all corresponding names in the relevant other ranks with the same type. In the species group, publishing a species name given like this also establishing the subspecies name. Next one. Okay. In the genus group, similarly, publishing the name of a genus also establishes the corresponding name of a subgenus or vice versa. Then in the family group, publication of the name of family, subfamily, superfamily also establishes the names in all the other ranks in the family group. Then principle of first revisor. This is the principle in that in case of conflicts between simultaneously published divergent acts, the first subsequent author can decide which has precedence. It supplements the principle of priority, which states that the first published name takes precedence. The principle of the first revisor deals with situations that cannot be resolved by priority. These items may be two or more different names for the same taxon, two or more names with the same spelling used for different taxa, two or more different spellings of a particular name. In such cases, the first subsequent author who deals with the matter and chooses the publishes the decisions of the required manner is the first revisor and is to be followed. Then principle of homonymy. This is the principle that the name of each taxon must be unique. Consequently, in a name that is a junior homonym of another name must not be used as a valid name. It means that any one animal name in one particular spelling may be used only once within its group. It is usually the first published name, and any later name with the same spelling as a homonym is barred from being used. And principle of typification. This is the principle that each nominal taxon in the family group, genus group, or species group has a name bearing type fixed that provides a subjective standard of reference that determines what the name applies to. This means that any name taxon in a family group, genus group, or species group has a name bearing type fixed that provides the objective standard or reference that determines what the name applies to. This means that any named taxon has a name bearing type. Any family group name must have a type genus, any genus group name must have a type species, and any species group name can have one or more type specimens. Then principle of priority. The first sign of recognition of priority came in 1813 when A.P.J. Kendall laid out some principles of good nomenclatural practice. He favored retaining prior names. Priority is a fundamental principle of modern nomenclature. Essentially, it is the principle of recognizing the first valid application of a name to a plant or animal. There are two aspects to this. So, the first formal scientific name given to an animal taxon shall be the name that is to be used, called the valid name. Once a name has been used, no subsequent application of that name for another taxon shall be valid. Principle of priority prevents arbitrary naming of taxa. Redundant name creation is discouraged and allows a consensus on which of the existing names has to be used. The principle of priority does not apply to names of subspecific entities since they are excluded from zoological nomenclature. There are formal provisions for making exceptions to the principle of priority under the codes. If an archaic or obscure prior name is discovered for an established taxon, the current name can be declared a observed name zoology and so conserved against the prior name. Similarly, if the current name for a taxon is found to have an archaic or obscure prior homonym, the current name can be declared a nomen protected. The principle of priority requires that if a name in use or for a taxon is found to be unavailable or invalid, it must be replaced by the next oldest available name from amongst its synonyms. If the rejected name has no potentially valid synonym, a new substitute name must be established in its place. The principle of priority implies that an available name which is treated as junior synonym may be used as a valid name of taxon by an author who considers the senior synonym as unavailable or invalid. An available name valid according to the principle of priority is not to be rejected but even by its author. The availability of name valid according to the principle of priority is not to be rejected even by its author. The principle of priority requires that the relevance relative procedure for homonyms is determined in accordance with the principle of priority. A species group name established for an animal later found to be a hybrid must not be used as a valid name for either of the parental species, even if it's older than all other available names for them. Such a name may enter into homonymy. Principle of priority can be reversed when the senior synonym or homonym has not been used as a valid name after 1899. The junior synonym or homonym has been used for a particular taxon as its valid name at in its least 25 works published by at least 10 authors in the immediately preceding 50 years and encompassing a span of not less than 10 years. A name that was rejected between 6 November 1961 and 1 January 1973 on the grounds that it was a nomen oblitum is not to be given precedence over a junior synonym. A name which was rejected can be used as valid if its synonyms are themselves invalid under the provisions of the code. Then synonymy. The concept of synonymy in zoology is reserved for two names at the same rank that refer to a taxon at that rank. A synonym cannot exist in isolation, it is always an alternative to a different scientific name. Given that the current name of a taxon depends on the taxonomic viewpoint, used a name that is one's taxonomist synonym may be another taxonomist correct name. Synonyms may arise whenever a same taxon is described and named more than once independently. As when two taxa are joined to become one, a species is moved to a different genus, a variety is moved to a different species, etc. Synonyms also come about when a codes of nomenclature change so that older names are no longer acceptable. For example, given here, then the earliest published name is called the senior synonym, and while the later one is called the junior synonym. In case these two names of the same taxon have been published simultaneously, the valid name is selected according to the principle of first revisor. One basic principle of zoological nomenclature is that the earliest correctly published and thus available name, the senior synonym, by default takes precedence in naming rights and therefore, unless other restrictions interfere, must be used for the taxon. However, synonyms may arise whenever the same taxon is described and named more than once independently, as when two taxa are joined to become one, a species is moved into a different genus. One basic principle of the earliest published name is called senior synonym, we just mentioned. One basic principle of zoological nomenclature is that the earliest correctly published and thus available name, the senior synonym or default, takes precedence in naming rights and therefore, unless other restrictions interfere, must be used for the taxon. However, junior synonyms are still important to document because if the earliest name cannot be used, for example, because the same spelling had previously been used for a name established for another taxon, then the next available junior synonym must be used for the taxon. So we must preserve that too. For other purposes, if a researcher is interested in consulting or compiling all currently known information regarding a taxon, it is again useful to know a list of historic synonyms which may be used for a given current valid taxon name. To qualify as a synonym in zoology, a name must be properly published in accordance with the rules. Manuscript names and names that were mentioned without any description are not considered as synonyms in zoological nomenclature. It is possible for a junior synonym to be given precedence over a senior synonym, particularly when the senior name has not been used since 1966 and junior name is a common use. The older name may be declared to be a nomen optilum and the junior name declared a nomen proctem. The rule exists primarily to prevent the confusion that could result if a well-known name were to be replaced by a repeatedly unfamiliar name. An example is the European land snail, given if the senior synonym was established after 19,000, we can be used only if the International Commission on Zoological Nomenclature approves an application. Here we could see an example also. Next topic we will be learning with the help of next video.